In the shop today, we've got a CAT950 in for a loader arm repair. Bucket fell off, one of the pins came out while it was operating, twisted the arm like that. So Wagner Cat said they could straighten it, but the lead time was too long, so we're gonna cut it off and re-weld it. To start out, we drafted a 3D model of the arm piece that was broken. It's 2-inch plate steel, and we sent it over to Dencall. They're able to use the file and make an exact replica for us. First step in the demo is to carbon gouge off the old pin bosses. They're a little worn out, but we are going to reuse them. Later in the video we'll weld them up, re-weld the bores on them, and then stick them in the lathe and turn them back to the right dimension. So now that gouging's finished, you can see the old arm is all twisted up, and we've got those pin bosses off. And we're going to start the process of laying out where to actually put the new piece. It takes a little bit to line up the cut line, because you really need to get everything close so that at the end you can get the pin locations lined up correctly to even fit on the bucket. And we'll line bore it, but it still has to be close. It's got to be close enough. So spent a bunch of time here getting everything just right, using a template, levels. You kind of just do whatever it takes to make sure you're happy with it, because once you cut this thing, well, you can't, you can re-weld it, but important to get it right. So, lining up the cut, of course, right away, ran out of oxygen, so got a nice ugly start to my cut, which is always fun. Got a new bottle swapped out, and here I am just getting the arm heated up, get it hot enough to start cutting. here you can see beveled both sides. Didn't put as much of a bevel on the new part. Didn't feel like I needed it. It's best to, you want to get enough of a bevel to get a good access, but anything more than that and you're gonna end up wasting a bunch of time filling in unnecessary welds. So yeah, so for a weld like this, we're putting runoff tabs. That'll just help make sure that the edges of the weld are all fused in. You know, it can be really easy to get lack of fusion if you don't put runoff tabs. Now that it's preheated, everything's tacked up the way I like it, I'm gonna actually start stick welding. Use 60-10 rod to get a root pass in there. Once I burn that root pass in, I'll switch over to dual shield. Run flux core just for speed. But I like to do that first pass in with stick because it's just super reliable. Here you can see me taking the grinder. I wanted a little bit more room. It's really critical to get that root pass to go 100% penetration. So, you know, if in doubt, I just open it up and make sure I get everything burned in there 100%. Kind of wish I'd counted the number of passes, but it was quite a few passes, even with the dual shield. A lot of weld to fill up a 2-inch plate like that. Here we got the completed weld. Happy with how everything came out and just grinding it smooth. Planning on adding extra support plates on there. Probably in hindsight was overkill, but you know, I'd rather do a little overkill than leave it to a chance. So here we are, painting the arm, making sure it looks good. Don't want it to rust. So there we are, finished weld there. Got our support beam on there. That was just for welding to hold everything in place. And there we are with support plates and get everything set up to line bore. Kind of interesting to find a reference point to line bore the new arm, but I was pretty happy with how it turned out. So for the line boring, I ended up tacking on one of the old pin bosses to get the alignment right. It actually was, you know, the new arm wasn't in perfect alignment. The hole we had cut undersized when we had sent off for that CNC new piece, and so we had to cut it a little bit off center, and so use the old pin boss to line it up and then bore it out. You know, end up boring it down to about within a thousandth of the bushing size. That way we could give it a nice tight press fit, and we'll end up having to heat the arm up to get it in there. And you know, also kind of shows the end here the angled hole that has to go in for the grease zerk. Important to make sure you get that, or else you won't be able to grease your pins. One of the final steps here, just reclaiming those pin bosses over to the outside. You end up running a bunch of weld bead inside them and turning it back down to size. We didn't get much for video for the installation. It was like 5 o'clock on a Thursday, 11th hour, just trying to get it back in service. But here we got some shots of it a couple months later. We ended up going back out just to put some heel plates, wear plates on this bucket, and here is the arm. Everything back in service, working the way it's supposed to.